Insane in the membrane.
Hello and welcome to another edition of your favourite podcast, Insane in the Membrane, with me, Rich Wilson. And this week I'm joined by author, comedian and ace-face, Mr. Ian Moore. Hello.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. You've got a puppy, you were saying.
I've got a puppy, and it's just pulled the plug out of the wall, and he's now nibbling on my expensive shoes, which hopefully keep him quiet for a short while at least. Investigating everything with his mouth at the moment.
What I like about you, now we've known each other 20 years, and
yeah,
there's this catastrophe just follows you around. It's like you are Jeeves and Worcester.
I am. I try and be Jeeves at all times, but inevitably I end up being Worcester. That's the thing.
Yeah.
There really is. It's kind of a little. Was that character in Charlie Brown that always had that cloud of dust around him?
Oh, is it Linus?
Yes, that's it. I'm a bit like that with personal disaster areas, but it's just trying to. I'm trying to cope with this puppy. It's been a real up and down couple of weeks. I lost my dog, my best friend, a couple of weeks ago, and we needed the energy around the house. And puppies do that. They just, they just cheer you up. It'll never replace Kipper, but it kind of keeps us on our toes.
Yeah, I think.
And emotionally, it's a real kind of. Fillip, it's a boost. It stops you getting too down because you have to focus on something else. So he's been come here then. If you're going to sit up here, right?
Oh, okay. Hello, mate.
There you go.
Look at that.
Let's say hello to Rich.
All
right.
Hello, mate.
Don't eat the microphone. Eat the microphone. Right.
There's always. I love it. I love what I'm. Like I say, we're friends, but I love watching your life unfold. I don't even engage. I just like to watch when you'll just go, morning all, there's a donkey in the road. I'll be back in a minute.
that was the thing. I was recording a podcast last week, and there's a knock on the door, and we never get a knock on the door. The doorbell went, and nobody ever rings the doorbell because we're in the middle of nowhere. But the neighbours, what? I'm just talking, man. Neighbours were. Staying at their place, they're not often there, and he said one of your goats is in the road. I've just kicked him out of my garden, and you're trying to put on this image of suavity and debonair man about cosmopolitan continental Europe, and within 5 minutes you're wrestling a goat outside. It's it's not an easy. It's just not an easy life.
You've seemed to have, because this is the thing, you've flung yourself, like you say, into the middle of rural France, and you are, because of your sartorial elegance, you're more suited to the city, to Paris, to the south of France, I would have thought. But what colour are your wellies? Do you even have wellies?
I do have wellies. They are cheap green wellies. It's sometimes you have to make concessions. That's what I've learnt in life. You just have to compromise at times. Without name dropping, I remember I was in Bar Italia in Soho once, and I bumped into Martin Freeman. He was with a mutual friend of ours, Mark Baxter.
Yes.
And Martin at the time was just moving out of London and moving to the country, and he said, in all seriousness, so as mods, where do we stand on wellies? That's the kind of conversation mods have in terms of, well, you know what, I've got a certain level of dignity to maintain, but I also realise I don't want to be sinking up to my Argyle socks in horse poo. So how do we get around the two? It's a practicality with an image as well. Have you frozen?
Have I frozen or was Ian frozen?
No, you've had a quick freeze there, Rich, I think.
Was that me, was it?
Yeah.
For fuck's sake.
That's Worthing for you. That is
No.
Worthing for you. There's no kind of high speed internet in Worthing. Everything's done at a slow pace.
It really is. You can feel it. Like it's where all the cool kids are moving down from Brighton. It's a very kind of Brighton's your party town, and then Worthing is where you go to come down and go. Oh,
Yeah.
That was a night, wasn't it? Bloody hell! Should we go to the cinema? It's only £4. But I had this conversation years ago with Martin Davis, and we were talking about this is when I was more into the mod thing. And we were talking about where we stand on technology. That this is the iPhones hadn't been around very long. I think we were on like the iPhone 2. That's how long ago it was. And we were talking about goes, well, yeah, mods would have the latest thing or the things that someone else didn't have. Like you'd have like the import.
Yeah, you'd have an iPhone 2, but it'd be on vinyl. That's how mods would do it. I think that's quite interesting because obviously technology, because now it's wearable technology, and I don't think say for instance the iWatch fits into that with a modernist kind of sensibility. I was wearing a connected watch for a while because just largely because of health reasons. I wanted to keep on top of it, and after a while I just thought no. It just does not go. It just does not suit me. It's not what I am. And so, hang the health and all the information I need to be carrying around about heart rate and blood oxygen levels. I went back to a straight old analog and I feel much better for it.
But this is the ironic thing, isn't it, with modernism, is that it's modernism, but a lot of it's quite retro. And it's kind of... Isn't it? It's like steampunk, but
it is.
Better
it is.
dressed.
It's retro modernism. That's what we do.
Which is just
pre-modernist modernists. I think that's what we are.
And it's
nothing
seeing
too up to date.
No, but it's like new labels, like people that have, I don't know, whoever. They've seen mod. There's a company called Mod Shoes, and they've got the old styles, but they revamped them. So it's still the old stuff, but it's just made by a new company.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what Pretty Green was as well, with Liam Gallagher's label. That was just what Pretty Green was. Only not, just not as good a quality. That's what he had. I remember bumping into you once years ago, and you'd bought this jacket from Pretty Green, and the buttons kept falling off, and you were getting most irate about it, and kept going back into the shop every time a new button fell off.
It cost me £500. You couldn't get it was like a black label, limited edition. Cost me £500. And the buttons, there weren't buttons you could get from another shop. Like, you had to go to Pretty Green and get these specific buttons.
Exactly.
And then, because my mate Gav worked for Pretty Green at Carnaby Street. I remember going in there, I went, mate, just get me a sack of these buttons. Just ended up with this bag. I've still got it. I've now got all the buttons on it. I'm a bit chunky now, so I can't really wear it. But it's still in the dust jacket. It's still in my wardrobe. And I'm like, look, I don't want to get rid of it, because I love it, but I don't think I'll ever get back into it anytime soon. And the buttons are shearing off, and this is the thing.
Get rid of it, sell it on Vinted, and then supply the buttons at an extra rate, and then you just make a fortune.
£20 a button.
Yeah,
yeah. But this is what I loved about. I mean, even though I've kind of come away from the modernist look, there's still bits of it in there, and I think that's what I love about fashion, is the fact that you can take the bits you like and you can mash it up. So I still wear a cravat, I still got the scarves, and I've still got, there's certain bits that I wear, jewellery and jackets and things like that, and I mash it up with, say, hip-hop or, Northern Soul or something like that. And I find I'm still into the clothing, but it doesn't have to, I found modernism too restrictive.
There are so many rules, and I think that as you get older as well, you kind of just tell yourself, look, it really doesn't matter if my suit jacket vent is 8 inches or 10 inches. I really have got other things to think about right now. And And that, like you say, that you can mix and match those things and just be slightly more relaxed. That's what I've found certainly in the last few years, that I've just with not being on stage so often, I haven't felt the need to really be that kind of top dog, to be the it's walk on stage and people go, wow, look at that suit, where do you get that suit, and all of that, because you had to have, for me, it gave me a certain amount of authority on stage. So it helped feed the confidence that I needed, but I don't feel so hung up about that now. And it's actually quite liberating. When you just sort of let out the belt buckle for a little bit and just relax.
I think that's it. It's just about just relax, mate. It's like, I remember talking to you years ago, and you were saying, we were talking about jeans, and you went, I don't wear denim. No. Like, even that's not part of what I do. Denim isn't part of this. And I was like, fuck, what do you wear? Like, what? And especially when you're like now living at your work, you've got a guest house and a farm and a thing. I'm like, I don't think Stay Pressed are going to cut it, mate. Like, what?
No. I mean, that was the thing. I mean, when mucking out the horses here, I'd have a specific suit for mucking out the horses. I still wouldn't go down the denim route. But immensely impractical, and it's not so sustainable either. So though I've relaxed on that score. I do. Denim does occasionally slip into the mix now.
I think you have to.
That's why cowboys wore denim. They're dealing with horses. Horses are no respecters of tweed. That's what I've learned.
No. You can't muck out the horses in your Bass Weegians.
Not really. Not really, no.
But I do remember my granddad, when he'd go and do the garden, and I've seen loads of this sort of thing at like Goodwood Revival and things like that, like immaculate like boiler suit, and then it'd be open just so, button down shirt, tie, Windsor knot.
Yeah.
He'd have a pocket square as well, and his sleeves rolled up just so, just to do the garden. And he looked incredible.
And I think that's, and those personal standards, they're not for everybody. And it's certainly in the modern world that you'd be regarded as something of an eccentric if that's how you went down the allotment. But, it's a personal choice. And and the thing about clothing for me is, if it makes you feel good, if it, like I said about going on stage, if it gives you that extra boost that you need to go and do what you want, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, I do. My kids are very much into their clothes now.
Yes, I met your lad at Comedia. One of them.
Of course you did, and you just mentioned Mod Shoes as well. And I was sent an email the other day from Mod Shoes, because I'm on their mailing list, and it's my son modelling their shirts, which is a really odd feeling to get that email going through and go, hang on, that's Samuel. So they're kind of following in the footsteps to a certain extent.
Yeah, but that's what you want. I mean, it's like my lads, my youngest one especially. He's still doing that kind of. He's got like a roadman, but libertines mix. So he's got these tattoos, and and he's a drummer in a band, and he's playing for Joe T. Johnson. And I went and saw him, and he had this wife beater on with these Dickies trousers, but then he's got his like Nike TNs. He's got his mullet, and I'm like, I don't know how you're making that work, but you're pulling it off, mate.
That's the thing. And you see, because you see people, and it's not your style, and it will never be your style, but they have a style. And you just admire that. You just admire the people who have the courage and the individuality to just walk down the street and go, this is who I am. I don't care if you like it or not, because it makes me feel all right. And that's all you really want.
Yes, and that's the key, isn't it? It's I keep seeing this at the minute, and it's up to you what you do. But I see people now; they're just always on about, I just can't wait to get into my comfies. People look slovenly now, and they're wearing Crocs and slippers and sliders and socks to go out, and you're just going, just if you were to just when you make an effort, it doesn't have to be all the time. You feel amazing when you tidy yourself up and you get a nice shirt on, a nice cravat or whatever, and a nice jacket and whatever it is you do to make yourself feel better. You feel 10 feet tall.
If you make the effort, you feel special. Then what you're doing is made more special. You know, I spend so much of my life in airports, and people may as well just turn up in pajamas, and you know, because there's so much leisure wear. I swear, most airports are powered by the amount of friction on leisure wear that just gets rubbed up against each other in a busy airport queue, and it just, it's not. I find it depressing. I just find it kind of. You know, there is no glamour in air travel anymore. We know that, you know, because most of it is budget. I mean, there is some glamour, but if you pay a fortune for that. So there is no glamour in terms of your day-to-day or your holiday to Turkey or wherever you're going on the flight side of things. But why not put some in? Why not, you know, go, do you know what? We're going on holiday. Let's dress up. Let's look different to everybody else who's in this airport right now. And again, it's a mental thing for me because commuting every weekend between France and the UK for nearly 20 years it got me down. It got me physically. I've suffered massively for it, and now I have rheumatoid arthritis, and you know, I'm in pain a lot. And mentally, I found it very difficult to cope with. And my coping mechanism was, and I never made any secret of this, my coping mechanism was that I would imagine I am some kind of James Bond figure. And that can only come, you can't do that wearing, you know, a Dunlop tracksuit and your sliders going through immigration control. You've got to play the part to make you get through this situation, it, you know, it's a survival mechanism.
It must have been. Well, I know it's been the talk of green rooms for many years. The fact that, you know, Ian Moore commutes from France to do this, and even though it doesn't take as long, it takes just as long to drive to wherever, Scotland or wherever. But it's what you have to go through. It's not just getting in the car and going. So you've got to get in the car, drive to Paris, get on the train, get on a plane, get to the other side, get on another train, get your hotel, do the gigs, hang around hotels, come back. Which you know, people go, yeah, but you're on trains, and it's like, no, but it's physically that's very demanding.
It's also if you're moving, then it's not too bad. But there's so much waiting around in travel, and you are, you know, slumped in a corner somewhere, or it's 5 o'clock in the morning and you're on a freezing train platform, your plane's delayed, you've missed that train, all of these things constantly beset you as you're travelling, or they always seem to with me anyway. Maybe I'm just a really bad traveller. Even after all these years, I'm just really rubbish at it. I remember, and this wasn't long before lockdown, and I was travelling, and I was coming on the Eurostar, and I had to cross Paris to get my train back down to pick my car up, and the whole thing was just, you know, and I'd been up, you know, it was the first Eurostar out of London, so I think it was like 10 to 6 in the morning, and I was knackered, and I was in a lot of pain, and I had basically 20 minutes to get across Paris, which is just not feasible to go from the Gare du Nord to Paris Montparnasse in 20 minutes and, you know, do the 10-minute walk after the metro to get to the station. It's just not doable.
No.
And I did it. And I got there, and I sat on the train, and I'm really getting quite a lot of pain now, and I'm almost tearful that I've made it. I'm sweating, and I'm just thinking, it doesn't matter. I'm on my way home. And the train on the opposite platform pulled out. I'd got there on time and jumped on the wrong fucking train. God. And I I just couldn't cope with it. I just could not cope with it. You know, I practically had a breakdown there and then. I just thought, I'm just going to stay on this train. I'm going to go to Rennes. Then I'm going to go up to Brittany. I'll just move in there now.
Wherever this train's going, I'm not getting off.
I was so.
I would have
it just really hurt.
Yeah,
really hurt, and it was probably around that time when I thought I really have to make some changes and not be doing this every weekend. I just couldn't see myself surviving it for much longer.
No.
Mentally,
was that the
or
driving
physically.
force then? Yeah, that was the driving force to you going, right, I've had these, because you've always thought about being an author.
I mean, Natalie, my wife, had been saying for years, you know, you just cannot sustain this. This is not healthy for your mind, for your body, for us, because, you know, you're not here often enough. When you are, you're exhausted. You're living out of a case even when you're at home, because you're leaving again in a couple of days. It's got to change. It's just got to change. But I've always been really reluctant to kind of to turn my back on something that I'm actually doing all right on. You know, the time on stage, absolutely loved it. I enjoyed what I do. It was everything else around it. I didn't see really the effect it was having, not just on me, but on everybody else. Because I was just, my head was just timetables all the time. Just where do I need to be? When do I, and down to the minute, you know. That kind of pettiness that timetables have to give you was affecting everything else in my life. So it was only really when lockdown came, it was then that, you know, Natalie said, this is perfect for you. Just whatever happens now, this is it. Stop. And she was right. You know, I've been much happier person since I've been home.
Yeah.
As often as I have. It's made such a difference. It feels like I've finally, even though I've been in France now, it'll be 19 years in January.
Bloody hell.
I feel now, only in the last 3 years, that I've properly made the move, if you see what I mean. I was kind of dabbling at it for so long. And it's made a difference. I'm much more relaxed as an individual, and much, you know, as my wife and children keep telling me, I'm not a complete bastard anymore. I'm actually a pleasure to have around at times.
Yeah. But it's funny, isn't it, how it's outside things that cause the issues. I know that sounds obvious to say, but like yesterday I had to have a meeting about my finances, and I was going through it. I'm like, where is my money going? Why have I never got any? Why? Because I looked at what comes in. I'm like, I should be living the dream. What is this? And then I'm going through it, and then Kate, my wife, came in and she's like, well, what about this? And I went, because it's not that, is it? And then sorry, hang on a minute. This isn't your fault. Sorry, I'm just stressed at this, and I had to lay it out and go, all right, I'm stressed at this. Look at these numbers. This is bullshit. It's not you. I'm really sorry about that. Whereas years ago, I would have been, fuck, just leave me alone for a minute.
I think we have. You know. I think comics generally have a quick temper, and I think we're quick to snap. Because we see this, any questioning of our judgment or outlook is treated like a heckle. So it's almost always the first reaction is almost, I'm being attacked here. I'm gonna defend myself in a way that we would defend ourselves, which is quickly, loudly, and aggressively. Because that buys us time while we're thinking, how the hell do I get out of this? You know.
Yeah, you're right. That immediate defensive. What?
Yeah, I mean, my kids would often say to me, "Daddy, you're at home now. Stop being stand-up man. You don't need to. You know, just relax." Yeah,
it must have. But then you became an author, and you've done brilliantly at it. It's really nice. Like I sit in that picture, it's so good when you see a mate's work. like elsewhere. Like it's not them promoting it; it's promoted elsewhere, and you're like, look at that. I just remember I stood in the street outside Waterstones in Brighton. I was like, look at that. And then Kate, I met Kate there. We were meeting up to something. I went, look at that. I went, that's my mate. And she went, isn't that lovely? And we had this big chat. And it was so nice to see. And it must have been a relief, because when you first started doing it, you were like you said, you were reluctant to not at least stand up behind, but not have it as like the centre of your universe.
It's just a completely different change of focus in terms of how I write, how I work, the money that was coming in, when the money was coming in. You know, as an author, you get paid twice a year, and I found that really quite difficult to adapt to, as anybody would. You know, I think as comedians we tend to live a bit hand to mouth.
Yes. Whereas,
you know, I'm now having to plan 6 months in advance, because that's when the next royalties check is coming in, and so spreading things out. Like I say, the discipline with the work is different. I work in the mornings now. I write until lunch, and then do whatever else needs doing in the afternoon, if I can. French lunchtimes tend to last quite a long time, so I'm pretty useless for most of the afternoon, to be perfectly honest with you. But but the main change is, like I say, is that I'm at home, and it's such a nice thing to say. One of the biggest things I missed when I first moved to France was not being able to drive home from a gig that night.
Yes.
That made and knowing that, you know, like on the last night of a weekend, wherever we were working, comics had already checked out of the hotel in the afternoon, but not told the gig because they wanted the hotel paid for. It was that kind of, you know what it was like, that kind of surreptitious. I'm staying in the hotel tonight, honestly, governor. And then getting back in the car that night and going home, and I never had that. And it really began to upset me, that kind of thing, that I was spending more and more time away, because I lived away, but the job meant that I couldn't get back. There were sometimes when I was working in London, and if I'd finished by about 10:30 on a Saturday, I'd get the 11:30 bus from Victoria to Paris.
Oh my God.
Which was it's no wonder I'm practically disabled now. It was just such an unpleasant experience in so many ways. The amount of low-level violence and threats and stuff like that on those late night buses, as well as all the other stuff. I mean, the only way I could get through it was I made sure I bought a good half a dozen cocktail cans from Marks and Spencer's.
Oh, yeah.
So I just sit at the back in my Edwardian frock coat, necking martini passion fruit cocktails and stuff like that, and just basically looking like a lord at the back, and like, I own this bus, you're not coming anywhere near me, and managing to get away with it. But then by the time we got to Paris, I could barely walk. And that wasn't the alcohol that had done that. I simply could, my bones and my muscles had just sort of frozen in this rigid shape.
Fused.
You know, you could have just picked me up and my legs would still have been bent around a chair. It was horrific.
Well, I mean, I've done it to, I think the furthest I've been on a megabus is, I think I went to Leeds. Coming back, you can kind of just doze off. But you know, late at night, you get the Leeds coach at 1, and then you end up back in London at sort of 6 a.m. And
it stops by all those satellite towns, doesn't it? That are just picking up clubbers. You know, like I think the Leeds one, doesn't the Leeds one stop in Barnsley or something, because the nightclub in Barnsley shuts at half 2. So you got
everyone
like a
piles
dozen
off their heads on pills or whatever else.
Just rotten.
And this is the thing, when people say, "Oh, you only work 20 minutes a night," you're like, no. You have no idea what goes into it. That I've had to leave at 1 o'clock in the afternoon to get to this gig.
Yeah.
And then I've got to sleep at Nottingham Bus Garage until 4 a.m.
Yeah.
when the bus comes. and I'm only getting 200 quid. And you go, yeah, but it's 200 quid. You go, no. It's not worth it.
It's there in your hand, isn't it? You know, yeah. Right. Yeah.
And
I've got mugged on the bus by
me.
some Barnsley clubbers. I've only got a fiver left.
And they had my shoes.
I had that once. I was getting on at Birmingham, and I was going, and the Birmingham bus was taking me to Stansted, and it was something like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm sitting on in this chair, and don't chew the cable, man. I'm sitting on this chair, and this woman across the aisle, she takes off her shoes, and she puts her feet and her legs across my lap. And she said, do you mind if I sit like this till we get to Stansted? I went, yes, I do. Will you take your filthy clubber's feet off my lap? No
Some
barriers.
people. No. I think we are. I feel we're regressing as a species. Like with the need to be in slippers 24 hours a day. And that phrase, I found it really difficult to adult today. And you're like, you're going to have to at some point. I know it. You have to. This is the thing. This is a mental health podcast fundamentally. And I'm all for, listen, you've got to take care of yourself, take care of your mental health, do what you need to do to get you through the day. But at the same time, you still got to meet some level of toughness, and you've got to dig deep now and again.
That's the thing. That's the thing about being an adult, is there is no downtime to that. You know, if
there isn't,
it's like having kids. You've got your kids. You can't just think, I'm just going to have a couple of weeks off thinking about the kids. You know, because it's just not possible.
No,
it's just not possible to do that. So you, like you say, you have to meet a certain level of expectation to get through life. And and not everybody can do that, and certainly not everybody can do it all the time. I've fallen off many times. I have weekly therapy to try and get me through. But there's just some things you just can't let go of. You can't say, well, I'm just not going to do that today. I can't anyway. It's not in my makeup. And that makes it difficult, because you pile on. You're kind of playing this kind of mental buckaroo, where the things are being stuck on you, and and it just becomes too much. Every now and then you kick out, but the stuff's still going to come back on you. You can't just walk away from it.
No, this is it. And I had this conversation yesterday with Kate, and we were talking again about, because she was going to go and meet her friend, and she's like, I don't fancy it. I mean, she's pregnant, so it's different, but I was still like, well, I think you should go. And I have this conversation with people all the time now. I'm like, when they say, oh yeah, but I don't really feel, and I'm like, the thing is, it's all very well going, I need to take care of me today. Yeah. And that's fine. But there also sometimes, if you've made arrangements to see someone for a coffee, they might need you to go and have that coffee with them. Not for any other, they just need to see someone. And I think sometimes you have to put other people as well before yourself and find that balance. I see what you mean.
I do see what you mean with that. Sometimes, I also see Kate's point of view completely. There is a reason I live in rural France and there's nobody near me. And I'm not pregnant. I don't have that excuse. So I can understand her point of view entirely. I'm not actually very good at that. I'm good at making arrangements. I'm very equally skilled at backing out of them. And I will kind of use that excuse of I'm just not in a good place now, without thinking about the knock-on effect. But equally, the other side of that is that if I do go and I'm in a bad way, I could really upset whoever I'm going to go and see. So my argument will then go circular, and I'll go, well, I'm staying here on my own because I need to protect them from me.
Yeah. Well, what I've done a couple of times when I've gone and I've met up with the person, and they'll say, how are you? And I go, do you know what? I nearly didn't come, and this is why. And normally they go, do you know what? I felt the same. And we have that conversation. And you kind of go, look, it's not because I don't like it. It's, you know what it's like. Okay, I know what it's like. What do you want? You know, it's, yeah. And then once you get past that, then you go, hey, I'm glad we did this. I think just being honest about it.
I think this is the thing about living in London and places like that as well, is that if you don't live in London, you think, well, why don't you see people all the time? It's just a tube ride away. Why don't you just go and see people all the time? You know, you've got loads of mates there. Why don't you just hop on a tube? You can go anywhere. And the idea that if you lived in, you know, let's say Barnsley again, just for an example, and you'd go, well, my mate lives a 40-minute train ride away, you'd go, I can't be asked. Just because it's a tube and it's supposed to be convenient doesn't mean that you would necessarily go on a 40-minute train drive to go and see somebody else. You know, so I find the whole, I think I've become more socially scared, I think, as I've got older, and that I tend to build up the pressure of meeting people into something that it really isn't. But to me, you know, like, I can't use phones anymore. I find it really hard to use phones. I can text, obviously, but actually speaking on a phone, I find really quite terrifying now.
I'm the same,
in an odd way, you know, like I was working last week, and I was doing a gig, not a proper gig, you know, well paid. And they asked me to do an offstage announcement, and I am awful at offstage announcements. You put me in front of any number of people, I'll do a show. But an offstage announcement, I'm gibbering and stuttering through this thing. All I'm doing is saying dinner starts in 5 minutes, and I can't do it, you know? I find that kind of slightly anonymous or non-face-to-face social interaction really quite tough now. But also I think that's bleeding into social interaction as well. I think I've spent so much time on my own now that I'm kind of, I've got Stockholm syndrome on myself. I think that's I've gone into myself so much that I find just socialising really quite tough.
I find I have to like I've just said, I have to map it out. And now I don't know why. I don't know if that's an age thing but I have to really, because I sometimes I overshare way too much, and I'll say far too many. I was having some problems a few years ago, and I was talking to Kiri Pritchard McLean's partner, Ed, and he went, "How are you?" I went, "I'm really struggling, mate. I've got this brain fog, and when I ejaculate, I don't really feel the orgasm. I feel like the orgasm's over there somewhere." And we're at a show, and I suddenly went, "What am I saying? He's only asked me how I am." And I just saw his face. He's going, "Hey, yeah. Oh, well, yeah. That sounds like stress." And I'm like, "Oh God." Yeah. So I really have to be careful now, not to overshare. I haven't seen him since.
I can't say I do that. I'm not one to overshare. And no, I bet you haven't seen him since. I bet he's probably not come out of the house since he saw you.
I have to really make sure that I don't know. I really have to think about it when I'm meeting up with people, and especially if I don't know them as well. Say you and I are meeting up, we just chat music, shoes, whatever, and we'd have a great time. But if it's someone I don't really know that much, I have to really be careful, mindful of what I'm talking about. Yeah, so I don't go too far, because you forget what your boundaries are.
I think that's a comedian's trait as well, to a certain extent, because almost everything that we do and think of and is part of our life becomes ammunition to us in some way, or it will go through a process in our head where we will say, how can I use this? How could I adapt that kind of thing? So we do, you know, sometimes just say too much, like we're on a stage, you know, and we can't help it. I guess it's a form of Tourette's syndrome in a way that I used to think I used to do that. Probably talk, people looking at you going, like you say, how are you? And you go, well, I'm having real problems with that. And I just, fortunately, I think I surrounded myself with the kind of people who just say mid-sentence, mate, I'm really not interested. I was just being polite.
Yeah, it's called small talk, mate.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. I don't do small talk. I either do big talk or no talk. That's the way I'm built.
I think, that's why I'm not very good on the phone. I've said this on here before. I have people ringing me up going, how are you? I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. What's up? Like, I'm just ringing up to see how you are. I'm like, that's weird. Like, the phone to me is a tool, and I'll arrange to meet you, and then we'll have a chat. But just to I don't ring people up. I just thought I'd check in. I think women, I don't mean sexist in any way, shape or form, but it seems to me that women are better at that. Like, you'll be sat on a train, going to a gig, and there's people coming back from work. And it's all women on the train just going, yeah, I know. And I said to him, and I couldn't believe it. And they're all just chatting about their day. Or they go, hey, I just sort of check in. How you doing? I haven't not spoken to you for a while, blah, blah. Whereas men are like, it's either football or nothing.
Yeah. Do you know what I think that is? I think that is a trust issue, that women, and it does sound like a really blanket thing to say, but women are more trusting, and men we're always slightly scared to open up or talk because we're not sure of the motives of the person that we're talking to. Right, yeah. So women trust their mates implicitly and can talk like that on the phone, and it's not a problem. Whereas we would prefer to see somebody just to see if they're rolling their eyes or doing a wanker sign at your face or something like that. We have to feel like we've got a chance to say, I'm only joking. It didn't really happen. So maybe it's that. I mean, that's just a bit of cod psychology, really. But I mean, it could be that,
Yeah, but it's funny. I've got a friend of mine, Rachel Wells, who I do another podcast with called "But Please Don't Panic," and she's autistic and she's got ADHD and some other stuff. And so the whole exercise is about getting her used to public speaking and getting out there, because she wanted to do stuff, but she found herself a lot on her own with her little boy, and so she wasn't really integrating with anyone. It was like, all right, let's do this.
That's
and
difficult.
Then
That's really difficult.
It's really hard. And so we she's like, right, I want to learn how to have conversations with people. So now she's like, who do you know who I can talk to? So she's now physically like saying, right, I need to practice conversations. Like, who do you know who's really good to talk to? And then we're like, and then afterwards we're rating the conversations. She's like, how did I do? I go, yeah, brilliant. I was like, that was an 8. That was a 10, and she's getting there, and it's funny watching her. And what I do now is like, so there's, Danny Buckler, a friend of ours. I was with him last night, was talking about that podcast, and he went, I'd love to be a guest. I'm like, right. So I messaged Rachel this morning. I went, right, my mate Danny Buckler wants to come on as a guest, and I knew her initial response would be, I'm not comfortable with that. But I was like, no, I've put this in your head now. It will now marinate. You'll mull it over for the day. And then by the end of the day, you'll go, all right, I've got my head around it. I think this is a good idea. And that's just start planning it. So
how else does Rachel find people to talk to then? How did you go about that?
Just
advertising the smalls.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you like chatting? I don't really know. I know there's friends of friends, and so there's friends. Yeah. This is like a group that listens. They're fans of this podcast and a few others, and they kind of chat to each other about what they've listened to and things like that. So I think it's kind of an extension of that. But I think a lot of people, what's happening, people are shutting themselves away more now than they used to. And I think especially after lockdowns where we were like, can't. I think we've all got PTSD, to be honest.
I think there's a lot of that. I think there's a lot in that, in what you say there. And I also think that people overwhelm themselves. It's easy to blame social media for so many things, but I think that we allow ourselves to constantly be bombarded and connected and, checking this and checking that, that at times it is too much. You almost need to cleanse yourself. Was it detox? A form of detox where you just take yourself away from interaction, and just sort of spend time with yourself and try and, this is something I do that my therapist taught me to do, that because I really wanted to try meditation, but my brain just won't let me meditate. There's always something going on, which means I can't focus on the thing that relaxes you, whether it's waves, whether it's counting your breaths and all of that kind of thing. So she said that I create a kind of memory palace where I would have good memories and stuff like that. But I've kind of adapted it so that I have this museum in my head that I go to that is kind of ordered, and I can choose a different, like good comedy or good books or good times or, stuff like that I can go around and just lie down in a darkened room and just sort of remember and sort of take myself back to a different time, rather than everything being right now and responding to that, and that's pinging off there and that needs to be reshared there and all of that. Sinking back into yourself so that you can just sort of remember a little bit about what all this is about.
Yeah. I think this is why things like, like youth cultures down the ages, so like modernism and rave and whatever else we've had, like, skinhead and rockabilly and whatever else has gone on, it's because you were part of something. It's even now when I see somebody dressed in a similar sort of way that I dress, and you do. There was a guy yesterday. I was in Brighton on Monday, and we walked past each other and we nodded. And it was like, I see you, mate. He had a really nice denim jacket on. He had these like rare shell toes on. He just looked the bollocks, and we kind of went, "Oh, mate." It's like you. So it's that nice thing, isn't it? That kind of recognition.
Mods always did that. It's like VW camper van owners driving past each other on the motorway. They flash their lights and just wave. It's that
sign, do the hand sign.
Exactly. And it happens a lot. You're walking down the street and another mod is walking towards you, and there's just a little nod, sometimes a salute on the top of the floor. Yeah. Just, all right, mate. I'll see you.
I'll see you, mate. Good to see you. My missus has just bought her dad's just bought not a new car, but a new car to her. It's a Ford Focus, and she said, "Do I have to wave at other Ford Focus owners now?" And I'm like, "You've been waving all day, babe."
Yeah, all those salespeople going up and down, medical reps in their Ford Focuses,
just constantly waving. Oh, mate, I want to talk to you. Now you're saying about how you are with conversations and people and things like that. Why did you open a guest house? I mean, that's inviting trouble into your own room, in your own house.
You're not the first one to ask this question. And I've been asking myself a lot the same question. It was basically, there's a number of factors involved here. When we first bought this place in France, we just could not believe the price of property in France. It was just absurd. It's ridiculous. And, we'd have to win the lottery to have something like this where we lived, which was in Sussex. Okay, it'd be worth millions, and it's not. It was like the price of a 2-bedroom flat in Brighton.
Wow.
And we got a lot of land and we got a lot of buildings, and so we always kind of said, but never really meant it, that we would make this place work for us if we needed it. That we'd taken on too much, so that at some point we may have to, let it pay us back a bit.
Yeah.
Then Brexit came along, and I genuinely didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if I would get French nationality. Natalie and the boys have French nationality. I had English nationality. If things are reciprocal, I'm not in the French system earning over here, so I could, in theory, be deported depending on how the rules go. And physically, I was finding it harder and harder to travel because of the rheumatoid arthritis. So it was all those kind of things that meant we set up this B&B here. And you're right. You're right. I'm not your archetypal innkeeper. I'm not warm and friendly. And I thought initially that I would make that a selling point, but it just turns out that's just being rude, apparently. And we've run it now. Yeah, obviously we had lockdown, and it was great during lockdown because the French state paid us a load of money to not have it open, which was which was just the perfect situation for me as the anti-host. And we were running it this summer, and again I was getting kind of jittery before the season started. I just couldn't do this. I just had enough of looking after people and putting up with their petty little complaints that were just getting me angrier and angrier. So it wasn't even going to be open this summer just gone, but my middle son, Morris, he wanted to open it and run it with his girlfriend because they wanted to go travelling, so they made some money out of that. But at the end of the season, I said, I can't do it. I just cannot do it anymore. And so we don't know what we're doing now. You know, I mean, it's paid its way. It's paid its way. And in terms of the books, you know, like the cozy murder mysteries, the one that's been bestsellers, that all came from having the B&B, you know, because it was the central character in the cozy mysteries is a guy called Richard, who's a middle-aged bloke who lives in France and runs a B&B, right? And I know, research was never my thing. And the reason I came up with that is because rather than actually kill the people who were staying in my guest house, I came up with ways of fictionally killing them off. And that's how the whole series began. So it's paid its way in a couple of ways, you know. But it was, I don't know what, like I said, I don't know whether we're going to downsize. I don't know if we'll do that. I'm not sure if we don't want to leave it. It's just that it costs a lot of money to have the place on site but not open, because I still have to register as a business, so I still have to pay taxes even though I don't earn anything on it, and social charges, and a much bigger tax on the land because it's this extra property on it. So either we downsize and sell, which we're not very, very keen on, or I turn it. I've got this idea of turning it into a kind of artist's residence place. So it will cover its costs basically, and writers and artists can come here for 2 or 3 weeks or whatever, and just soak up the place that has been quite inspiration for me. That's the favourite at the moment. I've tried that bepore. You know, I tried running writing courses out here years ago, and spent a fortune on website and marketing and all of that. And not one bloody inquiry. Not one. I mean, it was one of those situations where I kept emailing myself from the website just to check that the website worked, because I was getting absolutely no inquiries at all. So I'm not sure I could face that, but that might be the only option. I don't know yet.
Oh God! Well, I'd take you up on that. I'm currently writing a book. It's a show as well, and so I might need to bend your ear about that, because genuinely, I've got sent a kind of a template on how you approach this, and how you market it to a publisher. But it's getting it. I'm working on it, but I might actually. It's
such a tricky thing getting a publisher. It's just it's largely luck, you know.
Yeah.
Like 10 years ago, I wrote those 2 memoirs about being a comedian on the road and living in France and having the chaos that was between the two.
Yes.
And they sold all right, but I'd run out of stories about my family, and I was trying to, you get to the situation where you go, look, we need to do something because I've got another chapter to write. So can we try and and just faking the whole, which I never did, which is why there was no third book. But they're being re-released next year, which is great because the publisher wants to kind of cash in on the current success. And then I've got a book that I self-published, which I didn't realise was self-publishing, that it's actually harder and far more time-consuming to do the marketing side of self-publishing than it is to do the writing. And I just didn't want to do that, So it was on sale for about 3 weeks, and then I just withdrew it. and that has now been taken up by a publisher, and that's the one that comes out next week. So it's such an odd game. It is down to luck, just getting in front of the right person at the right time, which we know all about, and also, as we know as comics, circuit comics, is you never fall for the hype. You never think, oh, right, this person's got in contact. That's it. I've made it. I've done. That's it. We're all so warily, realistic about our own chances, fatalistic almost.
We've had so many times where we've gone,
exactly.
All right.
No.
So now it's like
not punch in the air anymore. Like they got. I sold the TV rights to this for these books, the cozy crime books, and Natalie and the boys are like, "This is amazing. This is just," and I'm just sitting there going, TV, been there before.
We'll see.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
When it's on, when it's in the Radio Times, then I might celebrate.
Ian, this has been lovely, mate. I've really enjoyed. I knew this would be lovely. Apologies for. I thought I'd sent you the link.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's fine. I'm just glad that the puppy hasn't eaten all the wires. He's made a right mess of my wife's Wellington boots, though, so I'm going to get into some deep shit for that.
Good luck with that, mate.
Yeah.
Ian, where can
you got a spare room?
Yeah. I'm actually in it. Come over here. Where can we find you? Are you on social media? Do you bother?
I'm on all the socials. Ian Moore, author. On all of them. Well, I'm on Threads as well, but Threads doesn't work because it classes me as European, so it won't let me post anything or follow anybody. But I'm on Twitter and Blue Sky and Instagram and Facebook and whatever's next. I'll jump onto that bandwagon as well.
I'm sure we will.
Or there's my website. The website's probably the easiest one, which is www.ianmore.info.
Lovely. Thank you, Ian. It's been a pleasure.
No, thank you. It's been lovely talking to you, Rich. Thank you.
Really nice. So this has been Insane in the Membrane. I've been Rich Wilson. This has been Ian Moore. We'll see you next time.